This has been part of the reality from the moment the NFL had its concussion epiphany, October of 2009, when Commissioner Roger Goodell and NFLPA Executive Director DeMaurice Smith were hauled to Capitol Hill and forced to answer tough questions, and the message was clear from Congress. You have a problem, you clean it up yourself, or we're going to do it for you. And the NFL immediately commenced the process of cleaning it up. And, Peter, there was a time, and maybe we need to go back to this time, where it felt like the default was any player who was diagnosed with a concussion missed the next game. Maybe that needs to be a hard and fast, non-negotiable rule as well. That'll get a lot of people pissed off, but at a certain point, we have to accept it. And that's how it was at first. And then at some point around 2012, 2013, the presumption that the guy's going to miss the next game shifted to, well, if he passed the he's making progress. He's passing the protocol. He passed the protocol to return to practice. Okay, good. Well, passed the protocol to return to the game. And now we see a guy get a concussion on a Sunday, and he's back the following Sunday. So I think they really need to go all the way back to square one and revisit this, because I fear that exceptions may be swallowing very slowly and very methodically the rule here. And even though the unaffiliated neurotrauma consultant is not on the payroll of the team, the UNC is still part of the broader system. And I think this is the next conversation we need to have. In 2009, it was acknowledged, hey, the team can't be trusted to take care of its players because the team wants the player on the field. So let's get somebody independent involved. Well, okay, the league can't be trusted to be truly independent and neutral here. So some of these UNCs may be thinking, I can't start saying this guy can't play, this guy can't play, this guy can't play, or they're going to find another UNC because the system wants the great players to play. It's not just the teams, and we need to acknowledge that. The Shield wants its best players out on the field to maximize ratings, to maximize interest, and to maximize dollars, Peter. That's the next step in this evolution in sensitivity to head injuries.
One of the biggest problems that I see, Mike, if the NFL does take another step and basically bans a player with gross mental instability from playing in the game the rest of the day, the biggest problem that I see is that would have erased a great football game. Now, I'm not saying Teddy Bridgewater could not have come in and played credibly in the second half, but I do not believe that Teddy Bridgewater would have beaten Josh Allen head-to-head in 35 minutes of football. And Tua Tagovailoa did. And that is what is going to be the price that the NFL will have to pay. Now,
and that's my point, though. That's why the UNC. But, Peter, let me just say this. That's why the UNC is suspect now. It's not a truly independent person because this person is hired as part of the mechanism that knows, oh, shit, we're going to lose one of our best games of the week if the starting quarterback can't come back. Maybe there needs to be somebody who's truly independent of the NFL who's making these decisions. But they don't want that, Peter. They don't want to give up control over their sport. But maybe that's where we need to be, where it's someone who is completely, and I don't know how you get there, but it has to be somebody who's completely disconnected from the process who is making these decisions. But the league would never stand for that because they want to have ultimate control over all of these decisions, especially when they're potentially going to lose a key player from a key game.
Yeah, and, Mike, the other thing I was going to say about this, I think a lot of what you say is correct. And again, I don't want to put, without knowing anything really about the granular details of what happened at halftime of this game that allowed Tua Tagovailoa to go back in the game at the start of the third quarter. We don't know the granular details, but it is almost, to me, unimportant what the granular details are. Because now that we've seen particularly what Sunday hath wrought, Sunday hath wrought Thursday, and we saw what happened on Thursday. And so whether Tua Tagovailoa, whether it was absolutely exactly what he said, that his head didn't hurt, it was his back. Okay, and I think there aren't a lot of us that are going to, swallow that without some real proof. But even if that is true, we need to get to the point where the NFL basically says, if the NFL, look, Mike McDaniels has said 3 or 4 times in the last 4 or 5 days that basically the health of his players is paramount. And I truly believe that he believes that. But if his doctor and his unaffiliated neurotraumatic consultants say to him, the guy's okay, he's totally clear, well, Mike McDaniel's going to put him back in the game. But if you say that the health of the player is paramount, then you have to begin to err on the side of caution, even if it's going to cost you a football game. And so that's why, to me, that there needs to be another step taken in this process, and that is to sideline all players who show signs of being wobbly, show signs of being punch drunk, who show signs of gross motor instability. Those people, their days have to be over.
I think that's the first step that at this point is a given, that the circumstances mandate. The broader question is, beyond making gross motor instability a no-go with no loophole for letting the player continue, if the UNC and the team physician conclude that there was not a neurological cause for the gross motor instability, what else needs to be done? What else needs to change to evolve this protocol and the application of it toward a spot where players truly are protected against what would be the worst-case scenario, Peter? And this is what we're trying to avoid. One head injury followed by another, because that second one, and I think I saw the phrase, and the term is second impact syndrome, that was trending last night. That's what kills high school kids every year. There are, and I haven't seen the numbers recently, but back 8, 9, 10 years ago, it was 13, 14 high school players per year died, and there was one fairly recently. Somebody sent me the link within the past 10 days of a high school player dying from undiagnosed head trauma and a second head injury. That's what the league needs to avoid. That's what all levels of the sport need to avoid, and the league fervently hopes that the efforts now will trickle down to the lower levels. Good luck with that. There's a certain amount of it that's not going to happen, because you truly need a strong independent voice to grab someone by the horse collar and literally remove them from the field. But that's the risk at the NFL level. And, Peter, I don't know if you saw this, but I brought back some quotes from Carson Palmer to you. 2009, you went out to Tahoe and had a round table with all of the great quarterbacks in the game at the time. And Carson Palmer said to you, and this was a big deal when it was posted September 8, 2009, the truth of the matter is somebody is going to die. Carson Palmer said that. And you wrote that it was Ben Roethlisberger, Carson Palmer, Tony Romo, Matt Ryan, Aaron Rodgers. They all got very quiet. And Carson Palmer elaborated. Now, to the league's credit, because the epiphany came a month later. The league woke up a month after Carson Palmer said what he said at the direct behest of Congress. But that is the ultimate goal here. Yes, long term, you want players to not have cognitive issues, obviously, but you don't want somebody to die on the field. And if you have a guy that's got a head injury that has been cleared somehow, some way, loophole, activated, and exploited, and player is back on the field and has that second head injury, he could die. And that was my first fear last night when I saw what Tua was going through after his head hit the ground. We saw the fencing posture. We saw the stretcher. Okay, you know what? They were wrong. He did have a head injury on Sunday, and now he's got another one. And what's going to happen inside of Tua Tagovailoa's skull? What's going to happen? So, it's great news that he's okay, but that doesn't change the concern, because the next guy may not be. And if the next guy's okay, the next guy after that may not be. There's too much of this, it's fine, until it's not. We talked about this yesterday with all the people they put out in the hurricanes, the reporters. The moment somebody dies out there, it's never happening again. Well, why don't we stop doing it before somebody dies out there? Same idea here. Yeah. Why don't we be more careful about the things that could kill somebody before somebody actually gets killed? Because if it happens, Peter, It won't be an evolution of the concussion protocol. It will be a revolution of the concussion protocol.
Well, it might be a revolution of the sport of football to the point that colleges start dropping programs. If the ultimate safe space for football players, where there are more guardrails in place than at any level of football, which is the National Football League. If somebody dies at that level of football, well, what would you think if you're running a middle school program in Wichita, Kansas? They can't even protect their guys at the highest level. What are we doing with our kids? So that is one of the reasons why the NFL, and look, Mike, the NFL right now is doing things like trying to get flag football to be an Olympic sport. The NFL is now, rejoicing in the fact that they're trying to get flag football for girls to be an interscholastic sport in several states, including California. And so, they're seeing this rush of people to play football, whether it's flag football or tackle football, whatever. They're seeing more and more people who want to play football. So that's probably the biggest reason of all. The NFL's worried about the future. They're worried about future viewers, and they're worried about future players. They're worried about the future of football, as they should be. Every sport should be. Every business should be. I get that. So that is one of the reasons why something will come of this. I'll say this. If something doesn't come of this, a tangible change doesn't come of this, I think the NFL is stupid. I just do. Everybody in America has seen in the last 5 days exactly what has happened. Everyone. And so now a nation turns its lonely eye to you, Roger Goodell. What are you going to do?
Well, and it really does go all the way to the top. It really does. And will there be an overreaction? I thought last night, and I tweeted this, a lot of people are going to lose their jobs over what happened tonight, whether they deserve it or not. Some may deserve it. Some may not deserve it, but they may get caught up in the tidal wave that's coming. Given that Tua was released from the hospital last night and flew back to Miami, which means they confirmed there was no internal bleeding. I mean, it could have a lot of people were saying, well, wait, what's he doing flying? And I even thought, why not just keep him overnight just to be 100% sure? And I don't know who's calling the shots there and who's making the decisions at the University of Cincinnati Hospital as to whether or not he can and can't go and all of that. But that gave me some concern, because what we saw last night would suggest maybe we just monitor the guy for a while. But again, they've got their protocols, they've got their checks, but we're questioning the very foundation of the NFL's protocols. So I kind of have my doubts about any of these. Like, how exact is anything when we're trying to figure out whether and to what extent somebody's had a head injury? But now the question becomes, do we see an overreaction? And maybe a certain amount of overreaction is good. I'd rather see an overreaction than an underreaction. I don't want the ultimate response here to be, well, Tua's fine. Tua's fine, so it's fine. It's all good. And I wonder about this investigation now with the NFL and the NFLPA, because it's going to become an exercise in PR, internal politics, labor management relations. Are we really going to get to the truth? Are we really going to get an unadulterated, unsanitized, honest assessment of what happened on Sunday, or is it going to be a lot of people covering their asses? That's my concern. My concern is we may never get to the truth on Sunday now, because the truth about Sunday looms so much more largely, Peter, over Thursday.
Yeah, and look, you talk about an overreaction, underreaction, all that. Mike, there has to be an overreaction to this. There has to be a significant reaction to this. This can't just go away in a flurry of statements and somebody saying the unaffiliated neurotraumatic consultant is this, that, or the other thing. It's not time to play the defense game. It's time to play the action game. It's time to appoint a committee of whoever it is who's the best concussion specialist at the Mayo Clinic? Who's the best at the Cleveland Clinic? Who's the best at the Hospital for Special Surgery? Let's get the people who are the best and just simply show them these plays and the test results and what doctors ruled about at every step of the way, and just say, is this right? Is this wrong? What do you recommend we do? This is what needs to happen now, at least in my opinion.
We've come a long way from having Paul Tagliabue's rheumatologist in charge of the NFL's brain health program. The Mild Traumatic Brain Injury Committee, which was convened in 1994 and spent 15 years, frankly, covering up and concealing the short-term and long-term effects of head trauma, which is a shameful stain on the history of the NFL and the NFL Players Association, because through all of that Fainaru-Wada reporting from 10 years ago, the one thing that was never emphasized the way it should have been, the union had a seat at the table the entire time. And the union clearly has a seat at the table now. We heard from D. Smith last night. He texted during the game to Andrew Whitworth and Richard Sherman, both involved in the union. Whitworth in the past, Sherman currently, that the union will pursue every legal option, including referrals to licensing authorities regarding the doctors who cleared Tua Tagovailoa to play on Sunday. And that's fine, because that's part of the problem. But the deeper issue is the protocol and allowing these loopholes to exist, creating a scenario where they can be exploited, and failing to understand the human dynamics that will cause people to err on the side of letting guys play as opposed to erring on the side of making them sit. Peter, this has been the issue for years now. In a key game like in a Super Bowl, remember when Julian Edelman was kind of banged up in a Super Bowl? It was Super Bowl 49, I think. It's like, well, they should probably take him out and check him. I mean, you got all these people that got their finger on the button, and nobody wants to press it in a moment like that. Nobody wants to be the one that takes a key player off the field in a key moment of a key game. That's the struggle that the NFL has, and we've seen it in those settings while a game is unfolding. Now we have to wrestle with it more broadly. When a guy has had an issue on a Sunday, should he be back on a Thursday under any circumstance? When a guy shows any gross motor instability, is it automatic that he is out of the game? We know he's going to get checked. Okay, fine. They weren't going to leave him in the game then and there. We've come that far in the past 13 years. But are we at the point now where any gross motor instability and you are a no-go, the same as if you show fencing? That again, we've talked about that. That's a given. The question is, how much farther do they go? And I think the questions are, how long is the mandatory absence for a player? And should there be a truly independent voice that is disconnected from the Shield? Because the Shield itself has motivations that are similar to the motivations of the team and the player, which is best players on the field for the best games as much as possible. That's something that's going to be very difficult for the league to strike the right balance on, Peter.
And you know what, Mike? We all talked and kind of waxed eloquently about the game in Miami on Sunday. What an incredible sports event it was, truly. And what an absolute battle to the finish. And how crazy it was at the end. And obviously the emotion that was involved with Buffalo losing at the end. And obviously you see the offensive coordinator up in the booth, going crazy after the game. That is the kind of game. That game is one of the reasons why everyone in this country who loves football truly loves football. The competition, the fight to the finish, the guys going out because they're cramping up. Everybody is needing IV fluids. It's like it was an absolute 15-round Donnybrook that people talked about for days. The problem is there's a human cost to that. And look, we will talk in the next segment about how, in my opinion, the Miami Dolphins should have been 10-point underdogs in this game. I don't care, with Tua, without Tua, because They played an absolute playoff intensity game, then had to get on a plane at 8 o'clock in the morning 3 days later and fly to play another game against the defending champion of the conference. So, that is a huge enough argument to against Thursday night football, which everyone loves, but there's a human cost to Thursday night football. We saw it not just in exhaustion, but obviously we saw it in Tua Tagovailoa last night.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why I think the broader questions include whether the bar needs to be higher for letting players play on Thursday night. Do the rosters have to be bigger? Maybe they do. Will it cost money? Yes, it will. Will the owners have to dig deep and deal with that? If they truly care about avoiding these kinds of issues and questions, that's exactly what they'll do. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.